Good evening, dear friends. Today we'll have a talk on international terrorism. Now we know that international terrorism has emerged as one of a very serious security concerns of the nation states in recent times. Now, international terrorism had been there as a practice for propagating a group's interests or for protecting their um, uh, aspirations. It had always been there as a part of strategy. Okay, so out of various strategies that were employed, like war or diplomatic confrontation or imposition of blockades. Uh, there were several other strategies also. Terrorism was also one of them. However, for a very long time, terrorism was not considered to be a first-order security concern for the nation states. Okay, primarily because of the fact that nation states were involved in mutual wars, and uh, terrorism was uh, conceived primarily as a sub-state threat. Okay, not an interstate activity. Okay, therefore, um, a good number of countries had not taken terrorism as a very serious security concern for a very long time since the birth of the nation state system. Okay, however, in recent times, um, because of the capability of nation states to deploy effective deterrence, and also because of the asymmetry in power distribution, okay, terrorism became an important means by smaller states or by relatively um, lesser powerful social or religious groups to put forth their viewpoint and to protect their interests. The use of terrorism has a very long history. Okay, the dagger man of the first century, Jews who wanted to stand up against a Roman culture, imposition of Roman culture, and anarchists of the 19th century, in the 1860s, 70s, a good number of anarchists also propagated and also have extensively employed terrorist means to further their viewpoint and to propagate their ideology. Anarchism is against order. Anarchism is against law or against bureaucracy or government. Anarchism is an ideology which believes in purest form of liberty for individuals, and it believes that individuals are capable of self-governance. Therefore, anarchism was against order, and therefore anarchists tend to propagate ideas against the state, and that's the reason why anarchism also had employed various means related to terrorism. Okay, revolutionary terrorism as a part of freedom struggles. That Bhagat Singh was a revolutionary terrorist, and that was a part of freedom struggle. Okay, and syndicalism also was another brand of socialism which employed violence and which employed terrorism to propagate its views. Sorel had spoken about the functional value of violence in propagating a political idea and for realizing political gains. And that during Cold War, terrorism was primarily nationalistic, and it was oriented towards uh, refuting or resisting colonial domination. Okay, and domination imposed by an alien culture. Throughout the period of neo-colonialism, we have seen um, terrorist activities performed by nationalists. Okay, therefore it was called primarily as nationalistic terrorism. Okay, so demand for freedom, demand for removal of domination imposed by an alien power. Okay, or demand for securing control over their national resources. This was the primary focus of the terrorist movements during the Cold War. Okay, apart from this, several marginalized minority groups like the Irish Republican Army also began to propagate ideas related to terrorism and also practiced terrorism. However, the 21st century terrorism, which is called as global terrorism, was qualitatively very different. Okay, it's also called sometimes as catastrophic terrorism. Okay, and it emerged as a principal security concern for a good number of countries. So previously, terrorism was not a first order security concern, but presently terrorism has emerged as a serious security concern and almost a first order security concern, primarily because of the fact that war as a means for resolution of disputes and war as a means for protection of interests has almost become redundant. Okay, and therefore several other strategies, including terrorism, had been more often employed. We have state-sponsored terrorism, and we have terrorist groups operating, clandestinely. Okay, all these have become an order of the day, right? And that terrorism has been defined by various experts in various ways. It's a form of violence aimed to achieve political objectives by creating a climate of fear or uncertainty and threat of destruction. Now, this was a definition given by Gooding, okay, and it's primarily also defined as a psychological strategy or a psychological tool for demoralizing a civilian population and to use their discontent or their threat perception or fear for securing a political objective or a gain. Okay, so this is how a good number of people have defined terrorism. Overall, terrorism is a belief in the efficacy of an instrument called terror for securing political gains. Now that's how terrorism came to be understood. And you also know that terrorism uses violence. Okay, and the usage of violence is purposeful. You know, there is a specific purpose for which violence as a tool is employed by terrorists. Therefore, um, the the greater the violence perpetrated, the stronger is the conveyance of message. You know, therefore, violence is adopted purposefully, and obviously it's illegal because no legal system supports the usage of violence, and it's clandestine, obviously because the state is going to clamp down on any such activities, and also it's aimed at shocking people primarily because it requires an element of uncertainty. Okay, so these are several ways through which terrorism operates, and clearly recognized political, social, or cultural objectives are there for every terrorist activity. Okay, because terrorists require adherents, sympathizers. Therefore, they have to very very clearly declare their objectives, right? And therefore, the primary nature of terrorism can be understood not in the activities or actions of a terrorist group, but based on the intent of the terrorist group. So, what is the intention? So, the secret of all the terrorist activities and understanding of the nature of terrorist activities is not going to give us the clear intention behind those acts. Therefore, the true nature of terrorism can be understood only by understanding the intention, but not the action. Okay, because action sometimes can be disproportionate to the intention. Okay, now you know that the actions of terrorist groups are often indiscriminate. They don't discriminate, and they are sporadic. Okay, because there is no regularity or there is no set pattern or specific pattern. Okay, the range of targets and the strategies that they can employ is very very diverse, and therefore defense for a terrorist threat is almost very difficult. And there are two types of terrorism as has been identified by a good number of strategic experts. One is terrorism from below. Now this is a terrorism perpetrated by non-state actors, by terrorist organizations who do not have sufficient organizational strength or resources. Okay, therefore these are terrorist organizations which operate sporadically and which operate without any planned manner. Okay, this is called as terrorism from below. And there is terrorism from above, and this is terrorism which is sponsored by states. This is called as state-sponsored terrorism. Okay, so states by themselves can sponsor terrorism. Okay, by extending support to terrorist organizations, either through material or through diplomatic support, or by allowing those terrorist organizations to locate themselves in their territories, harboring terrorist groups. Or states can directly involve in terrorist activities, as Libya had involved directly in terrorist activities officially, by supporting a good number of secret agents to commit terrorist acts against US. So states can directly also perpetrate a terrorist act. Okay, so that this is called as terrorism from above, or state-sponsored terrorism, or sometimes called as wholesale terrorism. Okay, and terrorist activities are very highly publicized because it requires adherents, it requires people who support their viewpoint, or it requires people who put pressure on the government for the terrorists to realize objectives. Therefore, terrorists fight against the state, but they make the vulnerabilities in the society as their tool. Okay, by infusing fear, by threat, and by providing danger to their security. Okay, they use society for putting pressure on the state for realizing political activities. Therefore, all the terrorist activities are very very highly publicized. We have several Al Jazeera and all these newspapers, they keep speaking about terrorist organizations and all that. Okay, and they attack symbols. If you remember, I've discussed once in the class that the attacks on US, on World Trade Center was primarily because World Trade Center represents America's economic domination, and Pentagon represents America's military domination, and White House represents America's political domination. Therefore, the attack was on symbols. Okay, so primarily that attack on America was to send a message that American domination is not going to be anymore accepted. So that's a symbol. Okay, and these attacks are primarily intended to shape behavior of not the targets but the states. Okay, and usually it is interpreted that terrorism is usually a weapon of the weaker. Okay, and states are asymmetrically so much more powerful than terrorist organizations, and therefore terrorist organizations operate at very subtle levels because they are weak. Okay, therefore terrorism is considered to be a weapon of the weaker. Okay, now there are different approaches to terrorism. The first approach is the realist approach. Now realists believe that terrorism is just a violent challenge to an established order by the non-state actors, and because realists believe that non-state actors do not play a very very big role in ordering international system or in affecting international relations, terrorism can best be only an aberration. Okay, which is a temporary phenomena. Okay, and terrorism cannot in any way affect enduring changes, or it cannot overhaul the existing international system. Okay, now the kind of response that is propagated by realists is uncompromising response. Okay, uncompromising response is the solution, and states should adopt any means, even action of dirty hands, because terrorism itself does not follow any norms, or is not limited by any moral or ethical considerations. Therefore states should employ any form as a part of solution. The second approach is the liberal view. Now terrorism is perpetrated, according to liberals, terrorism is perpetrated by non-state actors. Okay, with diverse motives, mostly ideological, cultural, or religious motives. Okay, now terrorism is considered to be a threat to the way of life proposed by liberals. Okay, the way of life that liberals propose in the form of freedom of individual, respecting individual dignity, protection for human rights, all these are considered to be threatened by terrorist activities. And liberals propose that collective action by all the states, okay, recognizing terrorism as a threat to humanity is the solution. Okay, however, this solution should be through respect for international law and respect for human rights. Okay, so collective action by all the states is the way that terrorism can be countered, according to liberals. There is another viewpoint that's put forward by the critical thinkers. Now critical thinkers are those set of thinkers who question mainstream approaches to understand international realities. Okay, for example, liberalism or realism are mainstream ideologies which seek to interpret international relations. Now this is questioned by the critical thinkers. Okay, now they believe that terrorism is primarily an outcome of the stereotyping and misconceptions, often overstated by ideological reasons. So it is stereotyping. Whenever we think about a terrorist, an image comes to our mind, isn't it? And that's what's called as stereotyping. Projecting an image, or attributing certain qualities to an individual or a group of individuals, or to a section of society which represents a political idea or ideology. Okay, or a cultural group. This is what's called as stereotyping, right? Now obviously we all know this very famous thing that one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, isn't it? So people's ideas about these struggles tend to have differential opinions, isn't it? Now there are two important schools of critical perspective. The first school is called as the radical theorists. Okay, Noam Chomsky is representative of this stream, and he believes that terrorism is an activity engaged both by state as well as non-state actors. Now states activities which are terrorist are considered to be more dangerous because state commands more resources, and America, he believes, is the biggest terrorist state. Okay, state terrorism is perpetrated against civilians, against its citizens, against smaller states, against social groups, and so forth. Okay, and the constructivists, on the other hand, believe that terrorism is a social and a political construct used to brand or to define a certain groups or a certain political aspirations as unjust and unreasonable. By associating those groups or that political aspiration with cruel images or images related to immorality or unethical or injustice. Okay, now this is done to picture a particular set of ideas or a particular set of political aspirations or a particular set of group of individuals. Okay, so that the target of the actions of that group of individuals is considered to be on the side of justice or legitimate. Okay, so this type of an attitude towards terrorism had gained popularity after the war on terror. Okay, now there are different types of terrorisms. Okay, and we have insurrectionary terrorism, which is an activity aimed at overthrowing an existing order. Okay, there is loner terrorism, which is primarily centered on a single event. There is nationalist terrorism, which is primarily for liberation from occupation or for gaining independence or for shrugging of economic dominance and so forth. Okay, and global terrorism, of course, is aimed at altering the global relations or global order. That type of terrorism is called as global terrorism. And one recent phenomena is what's called as new terrorism, the rise of new terrorism. Okay, the new terrorism that we speak about today is a terrorism that's considered to be a phenomenon of early 1990s. Okay, so this is a new type of terrorism which is primarily centered around politico-religious motives. Okay, there is a clear-cut religious motive. Okay, and according to Hoffman, 55% of transnational terrorist organizations today are primarily religious and cultural organizations. Okay, therefore terrorism has become a religious imperative. Okay, and for terrorist, the act of terrorism becomes a sacred duty. Therefore it is very difficult to reason out with him. Okay, and therefore his commitment becomes uncompromising and inflexible. And the objectives of such terrorism are comprehensive, my dear friends. Please remember, in the previous format of terrorism, on the previous type of terrorism, there were objectives which were limited, but in this type of terrorism, objectives are comprehensive. Okay, and they are less constrained by either moral, ethical, or even humanitarian considerations, my dear friends. Okay, and that this new terrorism goes to the extent of suicide bombing, laying down one's own life for the sake of his cause, or employing any means, including weapons of mass destruction. Okay, so it is cross-border, and therefore it operates without any specific patterns and becomes therefore very, very dangerous and sometimes called as catastrophic terrorism. Okay, now globalization and increased interaction interdependence has reduced the state ability to control this form of terrorism. Okay, now how do you counter terrorism? Strengthening state security, right, or military repression, and adopting strategies like surgical strikes or preemptive action. Now these are what are being employed in recent times, strengthening intelligence and so forth. And political deals. Now this is called as the hearts and minds strategy, of course, which got very limited relevance in the context of politico-religious terrorism. Okay, and of course the steps to reduce the profitability of terrorist activities as well as counter-terrorism measures. Both terrorist activities are sometimes deemed profitable. Okay, drug money and all that, and sometimes even counter-terrorism and counter-terrorism measures also have been proved to be profitable for some companies, because those companies are able to sell things like spy cameras and other counter-terrorist installations for the third world countries, which has become very, very profitable commerce. Now these tendencies have to be controlled. Okay, so this is about terrorism, my dear friends. Thank you so much.